Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of HospitaliTV. I'm your host, Rafael Peterson. If this is your first time tuning in, first of all, thank you for joining us. This is a show that was created for everybody in the hospitality industry that's connected to it one way or another. The goal here is to interview leaders that have done things in the industry, that have already proven themselves amongst the community and their peers. And the goal here is to extract useful bits of information, best practices, kind of just get some things from their experiences so that we can all be better at what we do and hopefully achieve our goals. So thank you for joining once again. Just do me one favor. If this show provides you any value whatsoever, please share the show. That's the only way that we grow. If it is valuable to you or to someone that you think you know that might be valuable for, please share it. You can share it on your stories. You can subscribe to the channel. Anything that you can do to help share the show, it would be greatly appreciated. We put a lot of time and effort into make these things happen. So that being said, our guest today, Cesar SANDOVAL. How are you doing, man?
Good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good.
This is, I feel like, a long time in the making.
Yeah, the two whitest Latinos here in San Diego.
You stole it from me, man. I was going to say that for sure. 100% of the two whitest Latinos you're ever going to meet in San Diego have converged into one place. Where are you from?
Well, I was born in El Paso, Texas, so I'm
Okay.
Tejano at heart.
Okay.
But my family is from Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua. So yeah, I'm first generation Mexican American, and I'm first generation born in the United States. So it's pretty cool to be here and represent. You know, my mom and my two sisters. I come from a family of strong females and hustlers, and yeah, my mom decided to come on a whim to San Diego, and I'm so grateful for it.
Did you ever live down there?
I did not. So my mom came when I was about 7 months of age.
Okay.
So I'm basically San Diegan at heart. I was raised here.
Gotcha.
I was born in El Paso, but yeah. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to jump around a little bit because normally I do like the whole background story and like little superhero, 3-second, how'd you turn into who you are now. But honestly, I was looking you up and I was hearing a couple recent podcasts that you've done. And to be honest, I don't want to butcher what your current role and scope of that role is right now because you've been growing so much. So if you wouldn't mind just telling us kind of what it is that you're doing right now and the scope of that role.
And don't worry, it changes all the time.
I know. I was like, look, it's hard to keep up with your Instagram. I'm like, oh my God, he keeps on from brand ambassador to a couple different things to now national ambassador and then actually building teams, which I didn't know you were doing that too. So there's a lot I want to unpack, but please.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the short answer is I'm the national portfolio ambassador for Casa Lumbre Spirits. Mm-hmm. Casa Lumbre Spirits is a Mexican family-owned company that is an incubator and an innovator. So we create brands from scratch. That's bottle, story, liquid, everything 360. And what I say gets to its teenage years or it's to its popularity and kind of goes off to college, we then partner with bigger brands or we sell a portion of that brand, and that's how it continues.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's my official role. So I take care of what is it now? Like 7 brands.
Wow.
And I have a team under me, and our fearless leader, Camille Austin, aka La Loba. She's our director of advocacy. So working closely with her, and yeah, man, just trying to spread education. The Latino, our full team of ambassadors are all Latinos, which is really
cool.
Amazing. And just kind of have that Mexican Latino identity, kind of showcasing what Mexican spirits are all about. It's more than just tequila and mezcal. There's so much out there. So
yeah, that's super cool, man. Congrats. I would love to. I was kidding with my boss that I'm going to Peru actually end of the year, and I'm like, I'm going to go check out the area where they do pisco. We got to bring in some pisco because I'd love to kind of dip in a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's where I grew up. Also, I'm half Peruvian, and I went to high school and a couple years of college in Lima. So that would be super cool, super close to home. So that's dope, man. That's awesome that you get to do something that resonates with your heritage and obviously very close to home. And what role did you come into Casa Lumbre?
So the role was national ambassador for Ava Solo Ancestral Corn Whiskey and Mixta Licor de Lote. 2 products from Estado de Mexico. Speaking of Peru, they use choclo and that maize. We use a very, very similar DNA-wise called cacahuacintle, this corn, this ancestral corn. So a lot of people don't know that all corn that exists in the world comes from Mexico. And so yeah, basically I was representing El Whisky de Mexico, and it's this cacahuacintle corn ancestral, non-GMO, all these beautiful things. And it's the first whiskey or first product ever to use this process called nixtamalización, which is that same process we use to make tamales, tortillas, to make masa, essentially.
Okay.
So we did that, and that was my first role, and that was our first baby in the United States. It was those two brands, and little by little, we started adding
Those
more.
were the first two brands in the portfolio.
Yeah, correct, in the
Gotcha.
United States, yeah. So we created other brands like Montelobos, Ancho Reyes, and Milagro Tequila, I mean, way back in the day.
Ancho Reyes, too.
Yeah. So
And then you sold that off.
yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So same master distiller, Dr. Ivan Saldaña, and so that you could see the progression, right? So like, oh, now it's something else, or now it's Campari, or people are knowing it. But those are those brands that we develop from scratch. And so Abasolo Nixta was my first baby, or babies, I should say, and started there. And then for a couple of years, we started adding more products, more brands, more ambassadors that were joining the team, which are awesome. And then eventually the role came naturally to kind of oversee all of them in a portfolio sort of way, and kind of grow that Casa Lumbre Spirits as a brand instead of individual brands.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man.
That's awesome.
Super excited.
How many are you across the nation? How many states are you in?
Well, all United States. I mean, I think we're up to, I don't know, like 41 states or something like that.
Okay.
So it's growing. Mexico, all our brands are in Mexico as well. I think that's one thing that we see with brands that are all United States that we don't sell in Mexico. So all our brands always launch in Mexico. And then we're in other parts of Europe, Australia and
Gotcha.
Asia. So yeah, we're kind of little by little growing.
And how many brand ambassadors are working with you, with the team?
Yeah,
the
so
different teams?
we have Camille, which is our director of advocacy, myself, Johnny Ramos, Adele Martinez, let's see, Ashley. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Scami, Ruiz, and Nino. So I guess that's 6 of us, if I did my math right. Or 7.
So 6 of you are covering 41 states.
Well, there's different roles. So that's I mean, yes, essentially yes, but basically we have a team. So the way it works is we are the advocacy team. There's another bucket, if you will, if you can consider it sort of like a tripod, is commercial, advocacy, and marketing. And all 3 have to work together in order for the greater goal. So not one is stronger than the other. But as far as in the advocacy team, those are the ambassadors we have underneath us. And they're all based in different cities. So we have here in California, we have Miami, we have New York, we have Texas. And so there's 3 national ambassadors, me, Cami, and Nino. And then there's regional ambassadors. And so what we're trying to do is kind of hyper focus in those areas to kind of be a little bit more strategic and not have everyone travel everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, God, I love it. Yeah. So I'm also going to ask just a lot of questions here from a very selfish standpoint, because, I recently moved to sales as well. I've been on the front-facing side of the hospitality industry for, about 20 years, honestly. Like now in 2023, I guess, would be my 20-year anniversary, my first restaurant job.
Cheers to that. Congrats.
Cheers, man. Thank you. First restaurant job was in 2003. That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, man, 20 years. It's been a very long time, but within the last couple of years, I started working with a wine importer, and we direct import, and then we self-distribute as well. So I think there's just a lot of questions. I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because there's so many interesting things. I want to break down a couple things. I'd love to kind of pick your brain on, and this might be a loaded question, so work with me here, but how do you best develop and promote a new brand in a territory, whether it's in a state or the country, or maybe you can talk about both? How do you do that successfully?
I mean, man.
And have you guys had products that have not been so successful and you've kind of moved on? Because I think the reason I asked that, the reason I throw that in there is I think there's a lot of learnings from the things that didn't go right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the simplest answer is that there's not a one size fits all. Number one, wine to liquor to beer, they all kind of are different. And same with our brands. All our brands are not one size fits all. So there are brands that are, more education forward, heftier, working with trade, or more like industry, what we call that. There's more of a consumer brand that's a little bit more party, easygoing. And obviously I'm not going to name any brands, but there's not a one size fits all. I think some of the things that we have learned is exactly that it's not one size fits all, just because this brand worked and crushed it in 2 months doesn't mean the next one is going to go.
Right.
And, we can look at it sort of like music. Just because you had one hit single doesn't mean your rest of your album or the rest of your records are going to go. So you still have to work at it. You still have to constantly adapt and change with the times and the people, what they're tasting, what they're enjoying at the time. So I think long story short is good marketing, good bottle design, good liquid. At the end of the day, if the product is not good, then
right.
I mean, that's for us. And again, maybe for consumers that are drinking something that is not so good, maybe that's the reason why you're making that brand, is for the college students that are just, trying to get a buzz on or whatever. So again, there's not a one size fits all. One of the things that I've realized is education, getting the product out there. Now, what is your focus? And I think that's one of the questions you need to ask your boss or your leaders, is saying, what is our ultimate goal? And it can't be a short answer of, we want to be everywhere all at once or whatever that may be. There has to be a very strategic plan. So I think planning is one of them, development, having these plans of Q1, Q2, Q3, right? The months in the year, the quarters in the year, and knowing that there is this development of growth, and it might take you, usually brands don't make money until the third year or after. I mean, that's just math. So do you have money to sustain those brands? Because you're going to be investing, and you are not going to be making profit overnight. And so is there this concept of instant gratification that it's just going to take off? Because that's not realistic. It takes time to develop, just like anything else, just like your skills or mine. So yeah, I think it's getting product people to taste, consumer sampled or trade sampled, making sure you're out there having people taste it, give you honest feedback and constant feedback. Pushing education is one of them. And then you have people like your marketing team that need to be out there with the social, the Instagram, the website, making sure everything e-commerce, is up and running.
Right.
And then you have your commercial team, your sales force, your sales rep, or whatever that may be, that are out there as well, hustling and getting, maybe the bigger fish that you, Rafa, are so well connected in the industry. You're going to tackle those industry people that know you, that icebreaker's already gone.
Right.
I'm going to support you because of you, even if the product isn't as great. I like you as a person, so I'm going to buy it and bring it into my restaurant or bar. And then you have the commercial team working with distributors. So it's a whole team effort. And with that being said, it's constant communication and constant feedback.
Talk to me a little bit about that interaction that you have from your side of being a brand ambassador for the product and then working with the direct sales team, I guess, right, which would be the distribution, because you're not taking orders. People aren't calling you, hey, I need 6 more cases of this, or, right, you are, like you said, you're more, I would say, more on the advocacy side, right?
Correct, exactly.
And then you're working with a team of a certain distribution team. How do you guys interact with them? What are some of the goals that you set for them? How do you make sure that they're hitting those goals or they're not? Where, are you looking at weaker markets? Who needs the help to kind of up the market over here? Like, talk to me a little bit about that interaction and how to get the best out of both worlds, right? Because I think that we both know a lot of people who are on both sides, right? We make, eventually you make friends with the people that are in distribution and sales, because we can talk about that too. That's a very important thing, to have a good relationship with these people. Man, they're doing another job just like we are. And then people who are working more on the brand side. So obviously you want to have a good relationship there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have monthly calls with the full team, like full on, knowing what's going on, where are we statistically in numbers and depletions and financials and all that good stuff. So,
and you guys bring that information to the table?
Well, there's other people that bring it to the table. So there's, our vice president or our senior, a couple other people that bring sort of.
But on your side, you're like, you guys are covering the analytics, and then like, this is
advocacy covers the analytics of what's happening in bars, restaurants, menu placement, like sort of thing. We work directly with like commercial. We're bringing that information, but we do have a financial team, an analytical team, I should say, that has the actual data. Because I can tell you, Rafa said that he's going to bring in 30 cases tomorrow, and I don't speak to you in a while, and then, they never ordered. I'm like, dude, Rafa, what happened? And you're like, well, sorry, man, I got busy or whatever.
Right,
so they had the actual numbers.
Gotcha.
And so we had this communication of where are we, where do we stand, what do we need to do, and what do we need to push. Now, if one product is skyrocketing selling, why? And is it price? Is it flavor? Is it that it's just connecting and resonating with people more? How can we do that with the other brands? Or do we even connect them with a different brand? Can you connect let's say mezcal with whiskey. Maybe you can't. I don't know. You see sort of patterns in growth. So I guess back to your original question of how do you work with distributors, is advocacy is a tool, a resource to be used when you cannot speak the language, when you don't have the full master class sort of from 0 to 100 of the full scope of what the brand is or the category. So I think we like to think that reps, in this case, distributors, they come in and they're order takers and see you later and I'm gone. And I have seen that, but then there's other reps that are really hungry and working. And so there's this symbiotic relationship that you need to have, and making sure that we are on top of them, making sure they're kind of doing their job. But for the most part, they're good. So long story short, if a rep is, I am an order taker, I don't really know about the category of whiskey or tequila or whatever it may be. This restaurant says they want to carry your product, but they need a master class. They need to know how to use it. They need a cocktail class. Whatever those classes are or education, that's what we're there for, because I come in and, one of the things that happened with COVID is we saw a big gap in, the masters or the people that had all the information, and they kind of left. And these people are just coming up, which are just bartenders or young, hungry people, but they didn't get the right coaching. So we can't blame them for not knowing. So that advancement of coming up, the fact that we can provide that service is an additional resource. So we're a tool in their tool belt, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
So I guess, that would be the way we can support the industry here. Like, hey, I have a bunch of new staff. We just opened. Any of those things we need education, that's what we're there for. Now, when it comes to discounts and pricing, we work directly with them. So everything is legal and works in a good, sustainable system. But I think overall it's that passion, that knowledge, and that education that we can bring as advocacy.
Yeah, I love that. So what do you think you're looking for, because you kind of talked about that now, in potential brand ambassadors for your team, right? You have like just like you said, people are up and coming. Now you get to talk to so many people in the market. You might see like who's doing good things, who you might like a little bit, and you're looking at this person. We might want to bring them on the team. Like, what are some things that you see that stand out for people that you would want to pick them up and put them on your team? And then things that, again, I love both sides, right?
Yeah.
Things that you'd want to stay away from because, it might not be the best for us.
Yeah, and I guess I would say that we are not always constantly looking. I mean, yes, if there's an opportunity, but at the end of the day, if we're not hiring, like, what are you looking for, really?
Right.
But I think the characteristics that we're looking for is, personally, I have an acronym that I use, and it's called CHIPS. Common sense, hospitality, initiative, passion, and self-awareness. That's like the overall arching thing. And people have, they might have their strong benefits are hospitality, but their initiative lacks or whatever it may be. So there's never this 100% combo. But I think just an overall standing person, male or female, doesn't matter. I think personally, I do look a little bit for that Latino just to continue, you can't sell champagne if you've never been to France. I mean, can we? Absolutely. But should we? Maybe not. I don't know. That's a controversial statement there. But I just think someone that can represent.
Really
I know. What I mean is, like, the more you actually come from the land or visit the place of origin, the easier it's going to be for everyone, and the more authentic. I think at the end of the day is authenticity. If I'm looking for someone that is authentic, they're not always performing and trying to be the best they are. I think someone has a hustler mentality, and I don't mean that in a derogatory term. I mean that in someone that's hungry, passionate, that wants to learn, that maybe doesn't have the years of experience of being a brand ambassador, but wants to learn. I much rather take a person with a blank slate or the new person. And same with my bars. I would love people that have never bartended before but want to learn. Great. You're going to start at bar back. You're going to learn all the basics because they don't have any negative tendencies already built into them. And we know those bartenders or those people that, I've done it for years, so this is how I do it. That stubbornness is someone that's what I don't look for. I look for someone that's adaptable, that can quickly adjust and be solution oriented.
Yeah, I love that. That's interesting too, because you said you like to look for people with a blank slate. I feel like, did you work in sales before becoming a brand ambassador?
The short answer is no. I was a brand ambassador. So I always worked the hospitality industry. So worked all of those positions. And then I was working part-time for a tequila company, Don Fulano, Fortaleza Arete, doing like those industry trips and kind of doing that. And since that was so small with a small distributor, yes, I was doing a little bit of sales and pitching, but I never went to school for sales, or I never had that thing. So short answer is no, I didn't do sales, but it all revolves around selling. If you don't sell, the restaurant doesn't stay open, the company doesn't survive. Like there's everything at the end of the day revolves back to sales. The way you do that, in my personal opinion, is by not talking about sales. I'm not going to sell you this $19.99 blah, blah, blah. It's just more by falling people in love with, we're storytellers at the end of the day. So can I tell you an amazing story that's authentic and real and passionate, and you feel that, to make you believe that, yeah, I do want to purchase this product or this food item or this cocktail, whatever it may be.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things in there, man. I just posted something the other day. I reshared something from Gary Vee that was like, storytelling is the most underrated skill in business. Yeah. And it's so applicable, to what we do, of course, because, on the spirit side for you and on the wine side for us, I mean, some of these regions are, it's so easy because for example, I'll be out in the market with some of our wines and we have, a lineup of wines and people are busy. I get it. Like sometimes if you're in a quick tasting, you're like, and I like that actually sometimes. Like, yes, no, move on. But sometimes I'm like, whoa, hold on. That's like let me tell you about that just really quickly, man. That's like came from like so far away in the world, from like this little village north of Champagne with like 500 people with like 6 generations of winemakers. Like, hold on a second, man. Like there's a lot of work that went into it. It's almost sometimes you got to balance that out. Yeah. But that's really interesting. And I think a lot of times we hear too, or at least I've heard, especially on the wine side is, and this might be more applicable pre-COVID, but that, you work in a certain position, you get up to being a sommelier and a / wine director. And then typically the path was you need to work in distribution. I mean, I've even seen that on job roles on LinkedIn that they're looking for, must have 3 to 5 years of sales experience working on the distribution side before you can become a brand ambassador for this winery, for example. And that used to be the traditional role. And I think that there's been a couple of examples, again, at least on the wine side, that's like, man, that person jumped right into like a really dope position working for this amazing winery. They didn't work a day in sales. Right. So I wonder if there's more of that happening now or not. Kind of like the COVID thing we're talking about, right? Like, hey, we just need somebody in the door.
Yeah, and I see this as, and it's funny because I'm doing, not a study, but one of our brand ambassadors is kind of researching this right now. Is the epidemic, not of COVID, but is there an epidemic of shortage of hospitality workers? The short answer is yes. And I mean hospitality, I bind that with sales. I bind that with all of these things that we're talking about. So I don't want to say hospitality is just the restaurant or bar. I think what we do is hospitality.
For sure.
So there's a shortage. And I think, again, that evolution of generation of, are people still going out to bars and drinking? Are they getting more savvy in cooking and eating at home? Like, we don't know, and this is what we have to study. But long story short, I think brands and companies have probably opened their spectrum a little bit more because people are not going to college as much as they were, when our parents would tell us, college degree is everything, make sure you get it, without it you're nothing. Nowadays, a lot of people, it's experience and how long have you been in the industry, and maybe you only got your associates or your bachelor's or your GED, but he or she is really good at it. So I think there is and I wouldn't say it's lowering our standards. I think it's opening our eyes and opening our visions to being more acceptable to people to learn. I think also the main difference is, as a company, realizing, are we trying to sustain a brand or are we trying to create something? And having those two buckets will also change something. If you're trying to sustain a brand, maybe you do want those 3, 5, etc. year experiences. Maybe if you're creating a brand, you as a company, as a startup, maybe you should hire some startup employees that are first, let's all grow together.
Right.
So I think it's a responsible thing for the company to say, we want to invest in our people, and we know they're not there yet, but we are going to pay for their educational classes, for them to go back to school, whatever that may be, for marketing lingo, and bring them up with you. And that's what I think most companies are missing, is not investing so much in their employees.
All right, dude, investing in employees, that's a huge one. That's such a big one for you. And I've talked about this before. Hopefully I don't sound like a broken record here, but like, that's such a an important topic for me, and I think it's so important now moving forward for us. There's some guys that I follow that are, or that. Sorry, I should say that I started out with in the industry that were always like the role models, like Paul Greco, Danny Meyer, and those old school hospitality guys from New York, dude. And like their whole thing was always like, they had their kind of their triage, their order of where to focus on, and it was invest in your people first, invest in take care of your people first, and then by default, your people will take care of the customers. Invest in vendors. Like he had this list of like 5, and then at the very last, I think, was the customer, because by that point, everybody's so good in their position that then by default, the customer would be taken care of. And I get really excited when I hear about people saying like, yeah, well, no, we're doing this for our people, and we're helping, like just what you were saying earlier, like we invest in them, we invest in their education, we're doing things for them to help them grow. And I think that's super important, man. Like I saw some bullshit article the other day on New York Times. It was like, companies are making fluffier couches and Instagrammable workplaces. I'm like, is that where we're at? Is that where we're at? It might
be. That might have to be another episode.
God, dude. It seems like versus like, it seems like such a cheap kind of dangling the little piece of cheese over here versus like, no, dude, I'm actually interested in your growth as an individual and hopefully your future success. Versus like I'm gonna get you a beanbag and a foosball table over there. I don't know.
It's funny you say that. Well, 2 things. I mean, one thing it's that fluff is sort of the meme, and Mover and Shaker. It's like if employees are feeling burned out or tired, it's like pizza party. Like just stick it in there, like pizza.
Right.
Know.
Right. Or you come into inventory. Here's a slice of pizza.
Yeah, for you. So it's funny, but I'm really glad you mentioned Danny Meyer because one of the books that has changed me fundamentally is Setting the Table. 100%.
Same.
I think that book is so powerful. I still have it. I've read it, 3 or 4 times throughout, let's just pick it up again and refresh. And we have to remind ourselves as well, sometimes you get comfortable or you get stagnant and you need to develop. So that book has changed me. I recommend it for anyone and everyone in the hospitality. It will change the way you think. And simple verbiage of hospitality and sort of, what it is anticipating the guest needs and exceeding them in like magnificent ways and memorable ways. So simple verbiage changes. Customer, you said customer. Like me, I would correct you there and say guest. Like let's start thinking that him as guests and little things like that. But no, as far as investing in your employees or your people, I think that's very true. It's something we do at Casa Lumbre. Again, we have to remember that Casa Lumbre is a small company compared to these bigger companies, but even the bigger companies are doing it well. Campari does Campari Academy. They, have their employees. I don't know the full extent of it, but I know they invest in their employees and you could see how they come off and how they are, and they're so well versed, whether that's bar smarts. That's something that we've been offered at Casa Lumbre. If you want to do it, go for it. We'll cover it. Some of our brand ambassadors are really good at photography or they want to get better. Photography classes, why not? You're only making their social and the ability to take better images for awesome. Everything.
Yeah.
So simple things like that. We also, we have a monthly book club now that we're doing as the advocacy team where we choose a book and we all read it or listen to it Audible. Again, you don't have Audible, don't worry, the company will cover it for you to listen to this book if that's how you want to study it. But we listen to this book. We haven't done Setting the Tables, but we've done other books, and we all come at the end of the month. It's like, what did we learn from it? We're all now there's one topic that it clears up and it makes everyone better. Now, for some people, maybe they would have never picked this book or don't enjoy it as much. But again, it's learning how we each other work and the language. I think the latest book we read was Surrounded by Idiots, and basically it's a way of everyone has a color or a shade of colors, and you might be very red, I might be blue, and again the book goes into detail, but how do I it's not that red is aggressive and assertive and there's negative and positive connotations to it, but that's the way Rafael speaks. And don't take it personally when he talks to me a certain way, or I need to go to his level to talk to him. So again, it was more of a team building, and that was kind of one of the books we read. But those are the simple little things we can do to kind of help our niche category, our niche team, to help them be better. And that's what we're doing constantly every day. And do we have it perfect? No, but we're constantly learning, and that's part of that feedback is how can I help you? What do I need to do to make you better?
Yeah, that's so crucial.
Yeah.
Dude. Well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, of course.
I hope that'll resonate with a lot of people because there's, hopefully a lot of people too that are in management positions or leadership roles, and that's such an important thing, man. That's how you obtain longevity, right? That's how you avoid turnover. I think if you're having those honest conversations with people, like, I think we need more of that. There's so much BS in the world right now too. There's a lot of noise, and not all of it's positive. I think the place that you're investing a lot of your daytime hours in on something that hopefully you're passionate about, if you can have those conversations there, it's such a game changer, dude. We need that, like, support each other and build each other up, man. That's the whole purpose of this whole thing. So, cool, man. I wanted to move on to a couple other things. I know we're talking about building brands, but you also have a really cool, I guess, personal brand of your own. I mean, at least on Instagram of what I follow, and you take some great. Are you taking all those pictures on there?
No, man. Credit. You know who the first person was? Stefan Krupinski. When he's still here in San Diego, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's one of the people that inspire me to be better. The guy is a beast. I mean, in all aspects. The videos, the photography, the knowledge, and that hustle mentality that we're talking about earlier. So shout out to him. He helped me in my career. And still does to this day. I mean, we support each other a long time, but he's one of the photographers that most of those pictures you're seeing were him. He's now, handling so much more. So, and he moved to New York, so not as much. But Johnny Ramos, I mean, he's a fantastic photographer. Most of the pictures that you see are a mixture of Johnny and Stefan. And of course, there's a couple here and there that are other photographers, but for the main part, those are my personal photographers.
Stefan's awesome. We've actually interviewed him during COVID on Zoom. Yeah, he's amazing. Shout out to him. He's such a good addition to, or I wouldn't even say it, like a driving force of this community, right?
Absolutely.
But sorry, not to get sidetracked, but so you're doing all these things, and it's funny, man, because I'm trying to do things very similar in that way too, where which feature sommeliers, and like I want to take cool pictures of them and kind of just to get them out there, just a little bit more exposure for these people. And I've seen a lot of the stuff on your page for a long time that's been that, like you're posting these really cool pictures of bartenders, maybe in some of the different territories that you're in. There's a thing that you were doing that's called Soy Latino, and maybe it was like a featured person with a product. Tell us a little bit more about that, and then maybe like just kind of heading into the community involvement that you guys are very active in. Yeah,
definitely. I think for, the personal page on social media, you're right. There is a lot of negativity. There is a lot of noise. I try to contribute to the positivity and kind of changing that. So, same how my mother would say, si no tienes nada bonito que decir, no lo digas. So if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. That's the same thing with my posting, is if you have nothing nice to post, don't post it. So sometimes you'll see me on quote unquote, blackout weeks or days or whatever where I don't post anything. It's like, I don't have anything. If it's not authentic, I don't really want to post it. There's still a balance of being true to who you are, which I think I am, but it's kind of posting that glamour, the nice, the positivity, even though there is a lot of background stuff that goes on behind the scenes that So that's for the personal page. I think, it all revolves around Casa Lumbre, around me. My whole thing is I'm a musician, so drums. I love motorcycles. I ride quite a bit. And so how do you integrate all those things to have sort of a balance of the brand, and representation of Latino community? And that's what I also do. So with the Yo Soy Latino, with the O being an @ symbol for it to be masculine and feminine, and where we're at. I don't really like the Latin X thing, and I don't want to kind of get into that, but that's just my personal view. So I just put the O as an @ symbol, so it kind of represents both. But the Yo Soy Latino started because of Latin Heritage Month. I think, we are the majority 100%, but also we are very underrepresentative of who we are as bartenders. Most of us are back of the house. We're the cooks, we're the farmers, we're the gardeners. And I think we need to start having a platform, and we need to start having the same amount of visibility as other bartenders in the world. So my personal plan, and a plan as a company in Casa Lumbre and advocacy team, is to give the platform to those Latino bartenders, to females. I mean, there's a shortage in female bartenders and female anything, to be honest. That's another thing we try to do. So if we can kind of get a Latina, is the number one priority for me, especially coming from a family of single mothers and sisters. And that's kind of like my ultimate goal, but obviously representing that community. And Latino is so much more than just Mexican. And obviously we know there's a lot of countries on there. But if I can give a platform to someone to, in a year or two be that popular or have more opportunities to be able to travel and work in other countries and other of these best bars, then great. I have done my job. And for me, what excites me the most, what gives me the most pleasure is seeing someone else grow. I mean, yes, I'm trying to grow on my own, but that's not what gives me the most pleasure. The most pleasure is to see those people around me like winning and really succeeding at life. That's what kind of gives me pleasure. So yeah, I mean, that's where the Yo Soy Latino was. Last year, we did it really well, where each week I was featuring a different bartender that was Latino, a little bit of their biography, a little bit of their story, and kind of showcasing them that might have otherwise not been showcased.
Right.
And now I'm starting to see the trend of, right now Latino's popular. It's kind of funny, whether that's because of pop music or whatever that may be, to kind of surround everyone is now wanting to speak Spanish, wanting to be Latino, visit Mexico. We're seeing what's happening in Mexico City and all that good stuff. But again, how do we go back to authentic? How do we bring it back down to the people that are underrepresented? So that's sort of the goal. And I'm seeing some other brands and some other companies kind of now tag along into the Hispanic or Latin Heritage Month, whatever you want to say it. Another term it's these verbiages that we need to adjust to. Hispanic I don't like it. I'm not going to get into it. But Latin, that's where we need to be.
Right.
Having these conversations. So.
Yeah, that's super interesting. First of all, part 2 of this interview, we're going to have to do it in Spanish for sure.
Okay, love it.
I did one before in Spanish. Actually, I think it went okay. I had Chef Claudia SANDOVAL.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
my tocaya, my last name
my
tocaya.
God. Yeah, exactly. And I think that went pretty well, actually. It wasn't too bad, so that would be awesome. But yes, you're right. There are these terms. I think that being careful as you kind of navigate these it's very easy for society to hijack these themes of like, we're going to do Latino, Heritage Month, and maybe, are you guys doing it for like authentically, or are you just trying to sell some things? I think there's a lot of instances of that where I'm like, it's easy to see that you're just doing this to check the box versus like, no, this is part of actually our identity and what we do here. So that's awesome, man.
Absolutely.
So on that community outreach thing, I kind of wanted to just follow up with that a little bit too, because I feel like the bartender scene is really good with events and community. You guys have like Tales of the Cocktail, like Bartender's Weekend. I think that started here in San Diego, right? Like,
yeah.
And I look at these things, I'm like, man, I wish we had more things like that for the wine industry. We actually have SomCon here in San Diego, which I think is like on year 6 or 7. Sorry if I got that wrong. But that's great. But it's like once a year, one thing, we don't have really too many things outside of that. And I kind of see a lot of the things and, the schedules and things that they put out, and to try to get ideas of what we can do similarly here.
Yeah.
But do you guys participate in any of those things? And also, if you'd like, what are some of like the best things that you see out of these kind of community events that are out there?
Yeah, definitely. So yes, the short answer is we do participate. We have, done Tales of the Cocktail. I will say that we threw House of Fire, which was an amazing party at Tales of the Cocktail. And we've done seminars and we've done other things, but yeah, we participate in all of them. Unfortunately, with limited resources or limited budgets, we always can't do all of them. Even though we want to, we sometimes just can't. And it's fine because the people that are organizing need to get paid. The people that are, hiring these volunteers, like they need to get paid. So there's so many expenses that we don't see. But sometimes it's out of our reach or out of our budget. And unfortunately, we're tied up. So if I could do all of them, if they were all like, just come, bring your own setup, bring your juice, and just pour, great, I would probably do more of them. But unfortunately, that's just not the way. Everyone needs to make some sort of money. So
right.
So we do Tales of the Cocktails. We've done Bartender's Weekend. We do SOBI, or the Food and Wine Festivals that Food Network / Southern Post. So we do a lot of those. And I think the best thing I see, and again, that consumer / industry, something like Tales of the Cocktail, BarCom in Brooklyn, or any of the BCBs, and Tales of the Cocktail, or did I already say that? Basically, Tales of the Cocktail, BarCom in Brooklyn, and Bartender's Weekend, what they all do is empower, educate, network. You grow your network. And I don't mean this network on an artificial, know my name, but the opportunities that come out of there is what I've seen I see people leave inspired, this next generation that we were talking about, or these younger that are just quote unquote starting in the industry. Number one, kind of taste different products, knowledge is absorbed, and they come out inspired, and that's what helps them develop their next cocktail menu, or helps them set their 3-5 year plan of becoming a brand ambassador or being on this side of the spectrum. So I see nothing but positivity from these events. Tales of the Cocktail is now on their 21st anniversary, so I think it'll continue forever. But there's also people that take it as, I'm going to go and party it up and just kind of imbibe.
Right.
It's fine too. I mean, if that's what you want to do, but just know that there's always someone there that is watching that will remember. If you get over intoxicated or something, you might be remembered as that person that got over intoxicated, and I never want to hire you because I saw how you got. So first impressions are everything, but also just they last. So that's what I always try to be conscious, that there's always someone not watching, but just make sure you are the best version of yourself. And if you're not feeling 100%, if you're not feeling social, if you're not feeling, like not at your best, then maybe just don't go to that event. So that way people don't remember of why is that person grumpy or not talking or just being mean. If you're there, if you're over intoxicated or any of those negative, I would just suggest get an Uber and get out of there, because you don't want people remembering it.
Right. No, that's a great piece of advice. Speaking about drinking, we toasted to this at the beginning of the podcast. We didn't really talk about it. So what do we have here? This is delicious.
So I need to pour some myself. So Almave is our newest launch for Casa Lumbre. Ivan Saldaña, our master distiller, is a partner with Salud. Is in a partnership with Lewis Hamilton. But basically, we wanted to create a non-alcoholic blue agave spirit. So all the non-alcoholics are there. They're mostly water-based. They're not using a raw material. Casa Lumbre, the fundamental part of Casa Lumbre is exposing that raw material of Mexico, in this case, the agave plant, which we know very well. But we get mature agave from Atotonilco, from the Altos of Jalisco. Once we do that, we roast it in brick ovens, the same production techniques of mezcal or tequila in this case. And so we roast the mature agaves, we crush them. The part where the non-alcoholic part comes is that we skip fermentation. So the sugars, I won't get into it, but we skip fermentation and then we distill several times. And then that distilled product is now the Blanco. So we have a Blanco expression coming out early next 2024. And then we let that bagazo, the fiber, the aguamiel, sit in the distillate for an amount of time. That starts picking up those honey flavors, the color, this beautiful amber color. Mm-hmm. And now you have something that's completely natural, that's using real agave, sustainably sourced and with no alcohol.
That's delicious.
Which is great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Really you usually don't get that body or that flavor from something that is not from a raw material.
So what are you recommending that this can be used in lieu of, in like cocktails, or how are people preparing things with this?
Yeah, so neat is great. If I could, 1 large cube, nice and easy. But a carajillo works really well with it. A margarita is as well, old fashioned. So kind of anywhere you would use that tequila. Yeah. A reposado tequila or whatever that may be. But yeah, it's beautiful, man. By 2026, I think this is going to be the #1 non-alcoholic spirit in the world.
Well, I'm sure. I hope you guys hit that.
Thank you.
And then we'll do another follow-up interview for sure.
In Spanish.
Yeah, man. Let's go. I think that there's a big movement too of people moving towards non-alcoholic beverages as well, right? We're seeing very thoughtful non-alcoholic cocktail options on a lot of menus. More and more brands are coming out with different takes on non-alcoholic beverages. What are some of the things? I'm sure you guys obviously with the creation of this, there's a lot of analytics behind it. Absolutely. Why jumping into the market? What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that trend. I think the younger generations are not drinking as much. They are kind of in this health conscious world now. They also have so many other things at their disposal, at their fingertips, that they can get imbibed, we shall say, in different forms. But also the purpose is substitution. It's not so much of I never drink, this is why I'm drinking it. It's also moderating your drinks with an alcoholic or starting off non-alcoholic. and going sort of back and forth with moderation. So I think we're just seeing the trend of non-alcoholic category just booming and growing because people are just being more self-conscious of what they are putting into their body, just like everything else. So yeah, I really love this, and I'm loving that, you know, cocktail menus are now putting more emphasis on the non-alcoholic cocktails.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't think we should call anything mocktail. That's again another story for a different lifetime. But yeah, the fact that there's so much emphasis on non-alcoholic as much as alcoholic, we shouldn't focus so much of what is not in the product, just more of the experience. And it's more about, like you said, community, inclusion. I don't need to know if you're pregnant or if you're on medication or anything, but the fact that you can confidently order something that is made with love and care as well as something with alcohol, and I can order it with confidence and not be like, by the way, this does not have alcohol. That's not the importance. The importance is the experience. I want to be able to order something just as well as a cocktail. So really excited to bring this to life because I think it's the best non-alcoholic on the market. It's definitely not a biased saying because I work for them. I truly, we did a lot of research. We tasted a lot of things, and this is unlike anything else. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's definitely, like you said, it's a big trend. I think people, for the better of the industry are kind of focusing on that as well. We know long hours, late nights, a lot of drinking. Yeah. It's not a sustainable lifestyle for a lot of people. And I think that's what leads to burnout.
Of course.
I'm actually having somebody on the show in a couple of weeks too that's completely focused on that, like an industry person that's focused on health and wellness, and she's crushing it. And I'm super excited for this. I'll definitely tag you on that one.
Yeah.
Cool, man. A couple other things. We've got to wrap up here shortly. I'd love to ask you, what advice would you give to young Cesar back on day one, man. First job, moving into an ambassador position, knowing the things that you know now?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to yourself?
I mean, can I cuss in this?
Oh yeah, I did earlier.
So don't fuck it up. That's what I would tell myself. Honestly, I think my mentality, my ethics, my initiative, and all of those things that we talked about as well. I don't want to sound conceited by any chance, but I would just say keep hustling, keep working, keep learning, and stay hungry. And I always say, love what you do, stay hungry, and stay humble. Simple as that. Those three keywords. I think I came at a time with Abasolonixta when, you know, we launched when the pandemic started. So everything turned into this virtual mode of Zoom, of video calls and all these good things and interviews through Zoom. And the human element, it was never there. It'll never be there through a digital camera or through any lens. And so I guess if I could have, I would have said, study a little bit more electronics, camera, and kind of the stuff we're doing now, because it's still now very much permanent and still very much going to exist in our lifetime. Yeah. So that's what I said, but I would have just said the same thing, you know, stay hungry, stay humble, and be persistent with what you're doing. So yeah, I mean, short answer.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm also going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to do one last thing that I haven't done before, but I had heard this in other shows, and I really like the idea. I want to ask you if you want to leave a question for the next guest on this show.
Ooh.
And then we will keep that in a certain rotation.
Okay.
Bearing in mind that one way, shape, or form, they're connected to the hospitality industry, whether or not they're on the beverage side like we are, or they have been in the industry forever and focusing on new things.
Man, that is on the spot. Now I'm trying to think of the question.
And then we're going to just keep that string going.
All right. I will keep it very simple and very fun. And but it might not be related to the hospitality, but I think music is a part of me. Yeah. Okay, great. I would say last 3 albums in a CD that you listen to if you're stuck on an island. What are those 3 albums that you would choose?
All right. This is going to be good because the next person's coming on has a huge background in music.
Okay,
too.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Cool, brother. I really appreciate your time, man.
Yeah,
thank you so much. Again, I've always looked forward to doing this. We met, I think it was 2017 when I was working at Presero, and just kind of mutual friends. I feel like I got a good vibe with you, man. And I'm just really happy that we get to take this time and kind of chat about some things that we're obviously very passionate about. And we're both trying to do the best that we can and trying to grow and inspire other people. So I can't thank you enough for your time, brother.
Man,
and best of luck with everything moving forward. And hopefully we can do this again soon.
Thank you, man. Cheers to you, and anything I can do to support you.
Appreciate it.
I will always do. Thank you, man.
So much. Thank you.
Cheers.